And just generally, where do you think the church in Australia is at when it comes to apologetics, defending our faith, articulating the truth of our faith?
Yeah, I mean, sadly, just to say, I think we've got a really long way to go. Most Christians wouldn't be able to give you a why. Why do I believe? If you say, why do you believe? What they'll tell you is how I came to believe, which is different to why I believe. So they'll tell you the story.
Which is often an experience.
It's usually experientially driven. And an experience is not evidence. Experience is a form of subjective evidence, but it's usually not going to be helpful in compelling someone else to believe.
True.
But for the most part, I don't think people are very clued into in Australia the truth of the Christian faith or the various lines of evidence that perhaps point towards the existence of God and the truth of the gospel. So I think we've got a long way to go there, just helping expose people to some of the reasons for faith in a pluralistic age. But the other aspect of it is I'm really concerned with how Christians go about trying to defend the truth. Because part of being able to share the Christian story is to do it not just with Christian truth, but also with a Christian accent. And so, Jesus would say, let your light shine. And the Apostle Paul would say that we're to do it, or Peter, with gentleness and respect. Or the Apostle Paul would say, let your conversation always be full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you'll know how to answer everyone. And so I find a lot of Christians get very defensive and start speaking in pejorative terms towards people of other belief systems or other ways of living, and want to be able to protect their own rights rather than in the way of Jesus being self-giving and being warm and respectful and having a compassionate voice that's concerned about the other rather than primarily ourselves.
Very good.
I think the way in which we defend the Christian faith actually matters almost more than what we say.
And I've done a couple of little videos on the Israel Folau issue, and one of the little complaints I had there, as much as I stand with Izzy, is just the delivery method of Folau, and just I think that's a great point. I think that doesn't help with the perception. And I think also the delivery method, whether your intentions are good or not, if it comes across as demeaning, condemning, the language we use, it's not great. And what I love about yourself and all the different guys I've met to do with the Ravi Zacharias Ministries is you definitely, I can see, you're well trained and prioritise bringing the truth with grace and compassion and empathy. And I love that because it truly reflects Christ.
And as part of that, I mean, with, say, something like the Israel Folau scenario, just being able to be nuanced, that it's not 1,000% for or 1,000% against, but saying there are serious issues that we need to grapple with as a nation. This is why I support, the right of religious freedoms, whilst at the same time saying I really don't think the methods are right or even the theology necessarily lines up. And so as Christians, being able to come and say, look, it's really important that we can have nuanced positions rather than just be a trumpet of you have to be for us or against us. I think we're meant to be able to help people see the goodness of Christ everywhere. And so everyone is a mixture of divine and diabolical, given the diagnosis that Jesus gives. And so just how we can explain that, so people to say, actually, you're well thought through on this. I can understand your position. Even if I don't agree with it, I at least appreciate the way that you've thought through something meaningfully, and that's usually really helpful.
And what about the church, Dan, when it comes to pastors teaching apologetically or churches discipling their people in how to defend their faith or evangelise in a relational, apologetic way? Like, how do you think, just from your observations, we're going in the church in Australia?
Again, it'd be a mixed bag. Some are doing better than others in how they do that. I think part of the difficult challenge is, I'm not a huge fan even of the title of apologist. It's not something you'll find in the New Testament itself. You more have people who are sharing the story, what the Bible would call evangelists, or we might call public Christians, who use apologetics along the way. But part of the challenge is it's been relatively sidelined to just a few, usually intellectual heavy lifters, so your Professor X or your John Lennoxes of the world or your Ravi Zacharias, and we kind of treat it almost like Christians standing in the stadium cheering on our gladiators in the ring as they're fighting the battle of ideas. And I just don't think that's a helpful image for what we need to do in the future.
It does kind of end up a bit like that though, doesn't it? Because not everyone's that smart and not everyone has
exactly.
that.
And so you'll always have people whose intellectual capacity is well up, but the New Testament's encouragement is for everyone to have an answer.
That's it.
And not to have the same answer as John Lennox, but have their own reasons for belief and be able to give an account for that. And so what my encouragement would be to churches is for pastors to think through, let me not duck the issues. So whether I'm preaching through a passage of the Bible or we're working through a series of topics and a question comes up, it's important that I speak to it. Now, I don't have to give a 40-minute talk on that topic, but maybe just one thing, at least acknowledge the question, say one thing that might be helpful, and then point people somewhere where they can learn more. Because pastors are pressured, they have a ton of responsibilities. To expect them to go out and get degrees or spend 10 years studying philosophy and history and science and psychology, it's just not reasonable.
No.
And so not putting all the burden on pastors, but at least, where they do raise the questions, point people in the right directions. But then within the church, there is so much online resource now that you can jump to.
Days, yeah.
There are podcasts, there are online programs like with what RZIM offers. We have a ton of books that are out there that people can be reading, introductory level or diving much deeper. And so just being aware that there's great resources out there for people to develop individually.
Yeah.
And usually people won't go about learning apologetics for apologetics' sake.
No.
I think it's usually a pretty weird person that does it just because they want to
Like
know
yourself.
all these things. Well, actually, I would describe myself more in a second category, which is either you have your own questions that you're trying to make sense of, or you care about people so much that when they have barriers to belief or questions that are causing them to doubt their faith, you care about them enough to go looking for meaningful answers to help them take the next step in their walk with God.
So really, you're just a great pastor at the end of the day.
Or just a friend,
That's good, mate.
And so for a lot of people, I don't expect them to go and try and think through an answer to why would God allow suffering unless they need to be prepared for when suffering comes. How are they going to approach that? Or they've got someone who is suffering and who's asking the question, where is God in the midst of this? To think through your answers so that what you say, we're all witnesses.
Great.
The question is whether we're a good witness or a bad one.
Great.
In the same way, everyone does apologetics. We all offer a why
definitely.
or answers to the hard questions. It just depends upon whether what we say is helpful or harmful in helping people see or frame God rightly.
Very good.
And so, most people are just going to be driven to study usually when the situations arise, and I'm totally happy with that. But just, knowing that there are a few hot button questions that people are probably going to ask, like right now in Australia, people are asking what's going on with God when it comes to the fires. How do we talk about natural suffering or natural evil? Where is God in the midst of the kind of devastation that we see? Does he care or is he silent? These are the kind of questions that people are asking, and just to think through, right, how would I help people see the God revealed in Jesus? If that's the kind of question they ask me.
That's very good. Maybe as we finish off, what are you listening to at the moment? What are you reading? Do you follow anyone on YouTube? Just I'd be interested, secular and also Christian, like what's going on in your world?
I appreciate that. I try and keep reasonably abreast of different conversations that are happening. One of the ways that I do that, there's a great UK show, it's a debate show called Unbelievable. It's run by a guy named Justin Briley, and so he'll usually bring on a Christian and a non-Christian to discuss a big issue, whether something to do with the Christian faith or more broadly topics around meaning, purpose, morality, these sorts of things. And so he gets a high caliber kind of speakers on there.
He does.
And it keeps you usually well informed as to what's happening globally in the conversations. And he picks topics that usually are quite culturally hot at that moment. So I think that's a great one for sort of beginners to pick up. They've got a 10-year backlog now, so a ton of programs you can go and listen to.
We were talking about Jordan Peterson before. I listened to him on that show, Unbelievable, with a British atheist something. And it was a fascinating little...
Susan Blackmore.
Was it that one?
Yeah.
I actually listened to that a few times. It was really, really interesting. You didn't really have the Christian and because they were both a bit...
more secular kind of thinkers.
But I'm just saying, just great conversations. And I like that, like you're saying.
Yeah, so something like that, even as an introduction, it says, hey, here's topics that I'm interested in. Here's some people that are key hitters. I'm going to go track down more of what they have. Yeah. It's a really kind of useful way to do it.
Well, he does one with N.T. Wright. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, where he asks them to write anything.
And that's brilliant as well. It's a lot more, it's theological, it's not really apologetic, but it's the issues of the day, pastoral theology, and N.T. Wright's just brilliant.
And so many of the questions I find myself answering, even in schools and universities, aren't just your typical, here's your objections against God. A lot of it has to do with, where is God in the midst of my life? What difference would this make? And so a lot of the answers are pastoral. And so leaning into your New Testament scholars and ancient historians, it can be a real gift too.
What are you reading?
So I do that. Each year I set myself a task to be able to read kind of intensively through one historical figure.
Fantastic.
Last year I was doing Eugene Peterson, a pastor who passed away very recently, and so just he has a beautiful catalogue of what it means to do pastoral ministry well. This year I've picked actually a guy who was a pastor in New Zealand and Australia in Tasmania and Melbourne for quite a long time, a guy named Frank Borum. He was a huge essayist, so just wrote thousands of essays and short things for publication in local newspapers, and so these collections of essays, you can buy a ton of these volumes, and so picking these up and sort of reading an essay a day.
So do you go out and buy everything and read through it, or do you just...
In times past I have, so guys like Jonathan Edwards or Charles Spurgeon or C.S. Lewis, I'll pick up their entire Christian library, and then you kind of work through as much as you can. But over time, you kind of develop a healthy library that way too, and you can lend books out. So, but yes, it is expensive. My wife is not very happy with the degree to which I spend money on books every year. So if anyone wants to sponsor my book budget, feel free to.
I try to get the church to buy me a couple, because I'm like, they're from ministry or for the church, and that helps a bit.
So listening to kind of podcasts and reading good books that are there. I try, we actually in RZIM have just a bunch of really gifted thinkers and speakers, and so one of the podcasts I love listening to is from a married couple, Vince and Jo Vitale. He's an Oxford philosopher, she's got an Oxford PhD in the Old Testament. And they run a podcast called Ask Away, and people can just send in questions and they respond, and they group each episode thematically.
Fantastic.
Just from them responding to questions. And so really helpful, grounded, good scholarship, but very accessible and kind of relationally framed.
Awesome.
I really love those sorts of things.
Awesome. Well, it's been great having a chat to you, mate.
Thanks, mate.
It's been too short, but we're going to hang out outside of this video.
Totally.
Which will be great. So, but we appreciate you coming down. Appreciate what you're doing for the kingdom of God, what you're doing in our nation. You know, I have a great passion for this country, and to meet other people who want to live here and serve God here, and, you know, meet the needs in this cultural moment for our nation's awesome. So
thanks, mate. Glad to be partnering with you in it.
Thank you very much.